Donetsk and Kharkiv are relatively new cities. Donetsk is only about 150 years old. Kharkiv is about 350 years old. And the satellite cities, Gorlovka, Sumy, Lugansk, Mariupol, they're even young. Stalin, the most recent and most salient history for most people, because before the Soviet Union, most of these places were just kind of podunk little towns. They were regional capitals, trading hubs, but never really something big. During the collectivization, there was something called the Holodomor. In Ukrainian, that's the way they say it, or Golodomor in Russian. But it means the death by starving. And what happened is, in order to encourage collectivization of farms, Stalin invented a famine. And he said that in order to help save these people, all of the food needed to be taken from Ukrainian farmers and sent up to Russia. This collectivization process caused many to starve. I knew a member who would talk about how when she was growing up, her mother would hire people with a jar of pickles to protect her going to and from school. Because if you did not protect your children by sending someone with them, they would be eaten. Millions starved. The entire area was depopulated because of how drastic it was. It was a genocide, just without any weapons or gas chambers needed. Accordingly, in order to repopulate the area and to industrialize it, Stalin sent in a bunch of ethnic Russians. Ukrainians were very hard to control, notoriously hard to control for thousands of years. The Cossacks were considered to be the bane of any organized government. But then when the ethnic Russians came in, they were a lot more likely to side with the Communist Party, to be supportive, and that has played a role, because now there is a very steep divide between East and West. That's why that's one of the reasons Donetsk rebelled, is because they were going to be forced to say that Russian was not an acceptable language, when most of them speak Russian as their first and primary language. The transplants would go to work in the mines and the factories. Mariupol gained a giant steelworks. It was considered to be the second dirtiest city in all of the Soviet Union because of all the iron pores that happened. It was very toxic. The sunsets are green, which is pretty, but not quite right. There's a lot of heavy metals just in the area. Coal mining is everywhere. You always be wiping coal dust from your windowsill if you're down south. Up north, it's different. When the Soviet Union fell, the majority of those who would eventually become members were happy. They were glad that they had the freedom, that they could now study religion, that they could learn a bit more. There are some very few members who are card-carrying members of the Soviet Party, of the Socialist Party, the Communist Party, and sometimes quite literally they do carry cards showing what their affiliation is. More often than not, you will find that the members are very Western, are very pro-America, if only because our missionaries were American. They'll cheer for America during the World Cup, even though we have no shot because Ukraine didn't make it. But in recent times, they've had, it's been quite a struggle. There have been a lot of times where Kiev and Donetsk disagreed on things. Donetsk never considered itself Russia, but it never certainly considered itself Ukraine either. It's a different creature. And that's what's been spilling out to what we see going on today. Late last year, militias from both sides began firing upon each other. Eventually, the Western-backed militia would be joined by the Ukrainian military. And as a missionary, looking and seeing the streets that you walk down on fire, and seeing rubble in the streets, and seeing buildings that you know hollowed out by explosions. It's difficult to look upon that. A lot of members fled the area to Kiev. But it's definitely, I thought at one point in one of the films that I was seeing, just one of the newsreels that I was seeing, a church member being beaten. It turned out it wasn't him. I learned that he was safe a few days later. But it caused me to weep. And I was uncontrollable for a couple minutes there, for a while. It was one of the hardest things to see the people that you were teaching all about the love of God to turn upon each other and to try to kill each other. It's why the gospel is needed, to prevent things like this. Many of the people in Donetsk would not serve Putin, and they would not serve Poroshenko either. They want their own independence. They want to do their own thing. They recognize that they're dependent on resources from both Ukraine and Russia. A lot are very pro-Russian, a lot are very pro-American. But even as you're looking at the airport that you flew in on, being burned to a crisp, there's always hope. The members will always keep in contact. They will tell you that they're safe. They will not let you down. It's difficult when you hear that various militia groups have taken over church buildings. But even when you see your own faithful church members taking up arms and going on different sides of the conflict, to a point where they might literally shoot at each other or shoot each other, you will feel the love of God. You will know that despite all of the pain and the suffering that will go on, that He is in control of it. I cannot say what's going to happen in the upcoming months and years with Donetsk and Novorossiya. But I can say that the Lord protects His people, and even though it will be a trial, if you see your mission turn into a war zone, you can pray about those who are there, just as you did when you were a missionary, and the Lord will help grant you peace.